Welcome back to Focal Point today. We're diving deep into a story that's making waves across the nation. Just hours ago, Arizona law enforcement began investigating Donald Trump's latest controversial statement, where he suggested Liz Cheney should face rifles in her face. This rhetoric isn't just unsettling, it's potentially dangerous and emblematic of a larger crisis in our democracy. Join us as we unpack how we got here, the reactions across the political spectrum, and what this all means for America's future. Make sure to watch until the end. This story is evolving fast, and it impacts all of us. The tension between Donald Trump and Liz Cheney didn't start overnight. To understand how we reached this boiling point, let's dig into their shared history within the GOP. Cheney was once a strong Republican figure, backing conservative policies and closely aligning with party values. But her stance took a hard turn in the wake of Trump's actions around the January 6th insurrection. Explore Cheney's family legacy in American politics, including her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, a key figure in GOP politics. Discuss Cheney's initial support for Trump's policies, such as tax cuts, deregulation, and conservative judicial appointments, which highlights how significant her break with him was. Detail the January 6th committee's work, Cheney's role as a vice chair, and her unwavering commitment to investigate Trump's role in the events of that day. Examine the costs Cheney has faced for opposing Trump, including losing her seat in Congress and being ostracized by parts of her own party. Compare this divide to historical examples where party members turned against a sitting or former president due to ideological differences, e.g. Goldwater's rebuke of Nixon. Vice President Kamala Harris's reaction was swift and direct. She condemned Trump's violent rhetoric as disqualifying, emphasizing that no one seeking the presidency should speak this way about a fellow American. Her remarks reflect a deep concern about how violent language can destabilize our political climate. Detail the significance of Harris speaking out, given her role as vice president and as a representative of the U.S. on the global stage. Draw parallels with historical instances where U.S. leaders were criticized for rhetoric that could incite violence, such as the anti-war and civil rights movements, and how leaders responded to calls for accountability. Explore the implications of Trump's rhetoric internationally, particularly for allies who view American democracy as a model. Countries in Europe, for example, have expressed concern about divisive U.S. politics, noting how it impacts their own countries. Include statements or reactions from Democratic and Republican lawmakers on whether they believe this rhetoric crosses a line, as well as the potential ramifications if other leaders normalize such rhetoric. We're seeing an unprecedented number of former military leaders and ex-Trump officials breaking their silence about Trump's leadership. Figures like General Jim Mattis, General Mark Milley, and General John Kelly, among others, have voiced serious concerns about the implications of Trump's rhetoric. For them, it's not just politics, it's about national security. Offer a more detailed look into each figure's service under Trump, including their roles and how they tried to implement stable governance under difficult circumstances. Share anecdotes of key moments from Trump's presidency when these officials felt compelled to take a stand, such as Milley's apology for appearing in a photo op at a church after peaceful protesters were cleared. Examine the psychological impact of such rhetoric on military members who view service as an honorable duty, and the disconnect they may feel when the commander-in-chief uses dismissive or incendiary language. Look at historical instances of military officials or cabinet members who openly opposed a sitting or former president, e.g. General Douglas MacArthur versus President Truman. With this rhetoric dominating the news, voters are finding themselves forced to make a choice about the future of America. The stakes are high. How much will Americans tolerate in their leaders' behavior? And how do such statements influence undecided or independent voters? Include polling data that highlights how independent or moderate voters feel about Trump's rhetoric and whether they're leaning toward the Democrats or Republicans. Dive into swing states and battleground regions, breaking down the demographics and their significance in this election. For example, how did these comments resonate in states with large military populations, such as Virginia or North Carolina? Explore the role of younger voters who are becoming a larger part of the electorate and tend to have stronger views on issues of respect, tolerance, and political violence. Consider interviews or quotes from voters expressing their thoughts on whether they're willing to overlook Trump's rhetoric for policy reasons, or if it's enough to sway them toward other candidates. Former President George W. Bush has remained notably silent on this issue, despite his reputation for upholding traditional American values and his advocacy for military members. Bush's silence has left a void that many feel he could fill by speaking out on the importance of democratic principles and unity. Provide more context on Bush's post-presidency, including his charity work, particularly his advocacy for wounded veterans, and how this work reflects his values of service and sacrifice. Include insights from political analysts on the effect Bush's silence could have, given his influence among conservative veterans and GOP loyalists. Look back at instances where former presidents broke protocol to speak out during contentious political moments, e.g. Obama on healthcare reform, Carter on global diplomacy, and the impact of their words. Speculate on whether Bush's silence might reflect a broader trend among GOP leaders distancing themselves from this rhetoric, and whether it's likely to shift public opinion. Trump's recent comments represent part of a worrying trend in American politics where violent rhetoric has become more normalized. This shift isn't isolated. Across the country, hate crimes and politically motivated violence are on the rise, often fueled by inflammatory political language. Cite statistics on the rise of politically motivated violence in recent years, especially since January 6th, to illustrate the real-world impacts of political rhetoric. Explore how both right and left-wing extremists have weaponized political language to justify violent actions and the consequences for public safety. Discuss the psychological and social impact of living in a country where such language is pervasive, particularly on marginalized communities who may feel especially vulnerable. Talk about the importance of responsible political leadership in fostering a climate of respect, as seen in past eras, such as post-World War II, when unity was emphasized despite political differences. With just days left until the election, it's up to voters to decide what they want America to stand for. This election isn't just about policies, it's about principles. It's about whether we're willing to hold our leaders accountable for their words and actions, and whether we value democracy enough to protect it. Dive into historical examples of elections where the character of candidates was central to voters' decisions, such as the Kennedy-Nixon election, and how character has played a role in shaping American political history. Encourage viewers to engage in civic discourse, emphasizing the role of the media, political debates, and peaceful protests in fostering a healthy democratic environment. Share practical steps viewers can take, such as researching local candidates, learning about ballot measures, and volunteering at polling stations to support fair elections. Reflect on how each individual vote plays a role in shaping the future, and how moments like this serve as a call to action for Americans to reaffirm their commitment to democratic values. As we close, remember that this story isn't just about one person or one election. It's about what kind of country we want to live in. At Stoic Venture, we're committed to keeping you informed and engaged in the issues that matter. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a crucial moment in American politics. Please like, subscribe, and share to stay updated. Let's hold our leaders accountable for the sake of our democracy and for future generations.